In 1931, in a small community known as Beech Grove, Kentucky, a new coal operation was coming to the one-horse town. This new coal mine was going to boost their small economy and put most of the men to work. And as you could imagine, times were tough. The Great Depression was in full swing, and people were struggling for any and everything. 1931 was a tough year for all. Eastern Kentucky was hit hardest in the coal industry. The Great Depression, with its national reach, disabled the already grim economy in the coal fields. A local author writes that by late 1931, 4,000 Harlan County miners, that's more than 1 in 3, were out of work. Working miners made as little as 80 cents a day and worked only a few days a month. Plagued by evictions from company houses, no other job possibilities, and even starvation, miners and their families were no longer able to rely on aid from the United Mine Workers of America and were forced to relocate or find other ways to feed their starving families. By the time the Eastern Kentucky coal workers could make it to the western coal fields, everyone was wondering if this was a cruel joke or was it actually going to develop. Men had quit their farm jobs in preparation for the new coal mine. Women had spent their savings on boots and gloves and lanterns so their husbands could be safe and comfortable down under. Months had passed, and at this point, it seemed like a distant hope. Eventually, one by one, new faces began to show in the town, and work slowly proceeded to progress on Wrightsburg Hill. The original mine was about 1.5 miles through the woods, west of the top of the hill. Many native Beech Grove men were hired on, but not nearly the amount that were hoped and that applied. Many were left helpless. The independent coal company was not taken seriously by the coal-powered power plant in nearby Owensboro. With no trains to transport coal, the only way to get coal to Owensboro was by way of the Green River, which was slower and less efficient. Not to mention, they had no barges that would contract with the non-insured and non-stockholding company. 3 years passed and the company had begun to fail. The loans were overdue, the equipment was falling apart, there were no contracts big enough to keep the men paid, and corners were being cut to get the coal out as fast as possible. In the winter of 1934, disaster struck. 13 men were a mile underground when the unthinkable happened. An account from a survivor was recorded in the local newspaper as saying, "We smelled a strange gas. It was like a dust. We all panicked and ran, but it was too late. The cave was collapsing." The remaining men above ground instantly knew what had happened and rushed to the town for help. They gathered men, women, teenage children, and anyone able to work that could start removing stone and rock by hand. 2 other workers rode on horseback to the town of Owensboro to get equipment and oxygen for the men. Hours went by, then days went by. Wives were panicking, and children were wondering if they would ever see their fathers again. The help was minimal due to the mine company's lack of prominence, insurance, and other technicalities. To be exact, the mine was virtually unknown, and according to reports, was selling coal to illegal underground breweries in the area to keep their alcohol stills heated and growing. One by one, the men began to emerge from the rubble, some in better shape than others. Covered in black dust, gasping for air, and all with the look of death written across their face, they emerged. Almost all the men spoke of a strange gas smell they were unfamiliar with, a smell they said was not the classic rotten egg smell, but a smell that was sweet and made them feel free and at peace with their situation. 12 men were rescued in all over a course of a week. Only 1 man was not recovered. He was believed to be dead, and a funeral for closure for his family was held at a local cemetery just outside of what is now Highway 54. The mine was quickly shut down by local officials, and most of the men returned home to Harlan County, Kentucky, to help their friends and family fight in the Harlan County coal wars that had been going on for some time in Kentucky. Little was known about the dead miner, and soon all was forgotten about the old shaft that still remains to this day. In 1966, two kids made their way up Wrightsburg Hill to the mine area known as the Flats. They were looking for native arrowheads when one of them stumbled upon the opening of the old mine. Curiosity overcame them, and they ventured into the lost cave. After never returning home, the parents of the boys alerted authorities, and there was a massive search. 2 weeks passed before a local volunteer firefighter discovered a Beech Grove gorilla's ball cap near the entrance of the cave. He believed the boys must have went inside and got lost, or fell down a shaft. The cave was deemed too unstable to enter, and the search was called off, and the boys were presumed dead. This wasn't the last case of missing children or people at Wrightsburg Hill. 2 years later, the same volunteer fireman took it upon himself to explore the cave. He left his coat and a note explaining his motives. The note read, "I feel I let these kids down. What if they were alive? What if an accident happened and we didn't save them? I must know." He too never returned from the cave. To this date of 2014, there has been over 14 people missing in the flats of Wrightsburg Hill, with no trace or witnesses of what happened. I came across this story one day in the Owensboro Library, Kentucky room while reading old newspapers from the McLean County News. I started researching more and more and came across several accounts of people going into the cave. They always went just to where the sunlight ends, and they all said they heard voices, chatter, and children playing. They said they screamed out to the voices, and the voices would go silent. After long moments of silence, the voices would pick up again, as if people were living in there and got spooked. One article stated in 1988, a team of scientists from a local university studied the cave and found a rare gas that they classified as a noble gas. They also found traces of xenon and ozone, which they believe is what the miners smelled in the cave. One thing I found was one of the scientists stated, in his own opinion, he found carvings and footprints of all sizes. He said he found bones of animals and the smell of burned wood, as if someone was living in the cave. He even went as far to say, in his hypothesis, that he believes the miner became addicted to the gases, such as you would when huffing a hallucinage, and has been kidnapping and brainwashing people who wander too far into the cave. The scientist believes there is an underground colony in the Wrightsburg Hills caves. He believes the lost miner colonized the people who wandered too far in and made them slaves of the natural gases. He believes that the voices are of actual people that do not want to be found and want to live their life as cave dwellers in the darkness.